republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome all of you to our November regular Board of Ed meeting. Jerry, do you want to introduce our speakers?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We have a number of our staff here in the audience tonight, and they'll be part of presentations and recognition in just a little bit. But I'd like to introduce Pat Theodore, who represents our Administrative Association. We have Linda Braley in the audience, our Vice President of the Federation of Classroom Teachers. Paul Patrone, who's with a patch. That is primarily folks that we have here this evening.
Thank you. Now, before we get into our regular meeting, at the beginning of every meeting, we ask the public if you have any comments. And does anybody have any comments? Okay. Then we'll proceed. Under presentations, Mr. Biller has a Career and Technical Education Assessment recognition.
A few weeks back, I shared with the board some great news with students and staff from Waterford High School being recognized with second place recognition in the statewide Career and Technical Education Assessment. And I wanted to have John Macrino, high school principal, give a little background on this assessment. And then it'll be our opportunity to praise and embarrass some of our staff for their fine accomplishment.
Thank you. Sure. I'll read a brief description just to put into context the importance of this award and this accomplishment. So each spring, the state administers the Connecticut State CTE assessment. The test measures state-identified areas of standards and competencies. The test includes standards related to PAP-style mathematics and reading, as well as questions related specifically to the areas of concentration. Schools throughout the state are ranked according to the overall percentage of students reaching that threshold. Over the last 2 years, we have made it a priority at the high school to more closely align our CTE curriculum with the state standards and competencies. This year, thanks to the determined efforts of our CTE site administrator, April Cairns, and our College and Career Pathways Coordinator, Yuan Chen, the dedication of our CTE teachers, who you will meet in just a moment, most of you know, and the hard work of our CTE test takers, Waterford High School achieved the distinction of ranking second among 109 schools in Connecticut. So we're very, very proud of this accomplishment. And with that, we'll hear from you.
And this is recognition of plaque that I believe was presented at a conference on November 9th at the Farmington Marriott. So this is on display. And then Jody and I would like to present staff members who are here tonight with a certificate of recognition. We have also put together certificates of recognition for students as well. So when your name is called, come right out here to the center. So Chris Cassidy is here this evening. Walt Canova.
Oh, no, Chris, you got to come down.
Walt. Engage architect. Lynn Corson. And Connie Martinez. And how about if in the center we allow you to hold this and get a photograph? One more. Thank you very much. With us tonight is Mr. Bill Martin, who is the Executive Director of the Waterford Country School. And I want to say, if it was back in August or early September, that one of the things the board had mentioned, it would be great to extend an invitation to Bill and come and share with the board the Waterford Country School connection to the public schools here in Waterford. And I would say to you that we have a very strong partnership with the country school. We have a number of students that are placed by state agencies, namely DCF, here in Waterford. And they're placed either in the safe homes or the shelter, and we work very closely with the types of services that we need to provide to these students. We also have some of our students who need some special placements for their education, and I think we might have 3 or 4 of our students that are placed over at the Waterford Country School, and I would say to you, anytime that you have the opportunity to have students remain in their local community, that's a real plus. So, with that, I'd like to welcome Bill, and Bill has a brief presentation to share with you and the opportunity for any questions that you might have. So welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Jerry was kind enough to give me 10 minutes to do a 90-minute presentation. So I'm not sure where to go with that, except to say that I've been at Waterford for 32 years. And in that time, some of my closest professional and personal acquaintances have been associated with the school system. That not only do we work closely together, but the Waterford Country School as a nonprofit agency and the Waterford Public Schools stand out in the state of Connecticut as a sort of a relationship bar that other people try to achieve. And that's been in its place now since I came to town, and even before then. I mean, we've been around since the 20s. And have been educating kids in town since the 40s. So the problem with describing Waterford Country School is that we're kind of not in Waterford, we're in Quaker Hill, and we're kind of not a school, we have a school, so our name has to be misleading, and people aren't really sure sort of who we are. What we are is that we're a place for kids and families to go when they don't fit into the rest of the world. And that can be a place where they live, it can be a place where they go to school, it can be a place where they just come for support, or any of the above. We have 12 different programs that operate in 3 different towns, and that our mission is to try and do what you guys can't do. When you look at it educationally, you provide this huge range of services for kids across a large gamut, and we pick up this little piece down here. So when kids aren't able to thrive in your system, then we try and help out. And that you also help out kids from other towns who come to stay with us who don't need the kind of intense education and can be educated in your arena, or you oversee their education if they don't have a hometown. I guess what I'd like to showcase is that we had a freshman from your school come in a number of years ago, and she came to us because she wasn't going to school, and she was needed to be hospitalized for some self-destructive behavior, and she was a struggling 14-year-old. And she's now attending 3 rivers. And she was able to look at us and say, you know what really matters, just what Jerry said, I didn't have to go to a special school for crazy kids. I got on the bus, and I went to school right here in town. And that made all the difference in the world to me, because when you're struggling and you're a kid, your image is so fragile that formula made a huge difference for her. And she graduated as one of our premier students, and actually not only sort of brought herself around, but she partnered with some of our other kids to help them sort of grow and develop, and they wouldn't have come so far if it wasn't for her. So those are the kind of things that we do in cooperation with you, and it makes it for a real powerful combination. Now, half of my 10 minutes is already gone.
You're doing just fine.
What I want to do is just give you a quick overview. There's not enough for everybody. I'm just trying to make it.
I can look on the show.
Thank you.
This is Waterford Country School for Dummies.
For sure. Yeah, well, sure.
This gives you an idea of the scope of services that we provide. For the longest time, we provided residential treatment where kids come and live at our program for about a year and go to school on our campus. That's sort of what we've been doing for the longest. We still do that. We have about 30 kids that live in that program. We have a group home in Norwich for kids that are kind of getting older but don't need to live with a family and are trying to manage their way into the community. It overlooks the Thames River on Laurel Hill. We have the school, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. We have the only teenage emergency shelters on the eastern side of the state of Connecticut. So that kids that need a place to live, who are homeless for whatever reason, there's only one place they can go, and that's with us. They don't have families to go with. We operate those only shelters. That was a partnership submission with the support of Rick D'Amato and the Waterford staff, and we broke new ground and actually piloted some legislation related to education and work for kids with homeless issues. The Safe Home program was our newest program back in 2000 for younger kids who were abused and neglected, and that was a place where they could be assessed and worked with. We also have 65 foster homes scattered throughout eastern Connecticut. And that would be for kids who can't live with their families and can't live in a typical foster home, but need a foster home that provides extra support. So we provide staff and training for the families. We have an outpatient clinic. We have in-home services. We have a summer camp called Camp No Kick 'Em Out for kids that don't tend to do well at different camps. They come to our camp and they do well because we have the support there. And then we have a whole wildlife program, so that we have a 350-acre campus, and we have the Morgan Minor Farm and the Rick McPherson Outdoor Center. And probably a lot of you are familiar with that. If you've had kids that have gone through Clark Lane, or you are in Clark Lane, you've probably been out to our ropes course. It's a rite of passage for the Clark Lane kids. Your elementary schools come out and learn about animal safety, that sort of thing. We do wildlife rehabilitation, so we generally take care of about 250 sick or wounded wildlife every year. And if they can't be released into the wild, they can stay and live out their lives with us. So that farm is available for you guys to come visit anytime. You can park in our parking lot and walk down and walk through the farm. You may have seen it during our annual Family Fun Day celebration. The last thing I want to say is that we've had a great opportunity come our way, is that in addition to being the executive director, I'm a part-time faculty member at Cornell University, and Cornell is piloting new work with kids who struggle with our kind of issues. And basically, their research says that if you plant lettuce and it doesn't grow well, you don't blame the lettuce. They say that kids will do well if they can, and that if they're not doing well, it's up to the world around them and the adults to come up with a way to try and make that a nurturing kind of environment. When kids have struggled and been traumatized and been hurt in different ways, they tend to act hurtfully. And in our organization, and cooperatively with the town of Waterford, we help see through the behavior to the hurt that's underneath and start some healing and get them back onto the road. We basically have about an 80% success rate across all of our programs, something we're extremely proud of. We have one of our board members there, Jay Minor. I'm sure I'll hear about this presentation later.
You did a good job.
That's my pen. Would you like some questions, or do I...
Does anybody have any questions? Anybody on the board?
Yes. What becomes of the 20% that don't succeed, as you say?
Yeah, great question. There's levels of service beyond ours that they might require, so that kids that are in our therapeutic foster homes might need to go into a therapeutic group home instead, or kids that are in an open setting might need to go into a more closed setting. Kids that are in our education program might need to go into a clinical education program. So it's all in levels of care. They would advance to a higher level of care.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I know, speaking for Kathy Vallone, our Director of Special Education, when we get to the start of the new school year, it's rather hectic, where a number of students are just finding out are placed here in one of the shelters or safe homes, and then quickly working closely with the country school to really identify the level of service and how we can partner and support one another. And I think the other piece is the ongoing sharing of information, so we're not totally surprised and we can best meet the needs of students. So that's a real compliment to the partnership.
It is no gift for a town like you to have an agency our size in your proximity, and Kathy's one of those people that pays the price. It's a huge amount of work that comes out of her office in terms of working with us and with our kids to try and find placements and to get them settled in education, as is the case with the high school and middle school. That this is, it's like we're the big brother and we're the little brother. We certainly carry a good chunk of the weight of what we do in the rest of it.
What's the ages generally of the people at the main campus, the kids up there? What's the youngest?
It used to be ages 3 to 20. But this particular commissioner of DCF is really trying not to put kids under the age of 10 in group care. So now it's about age 11 to 20, except that in our day program, most of our new admissions this year have been elementary age kids. So we have 24 kids now, day students in our elementary program. So it seems like the day student age is falling and the live-in age is rising.
What is the criteria for other towns having to pay for the students that are at the Waterford Country School? Do they have to be, how do you work that out? Okay, so
any school board that sends us a child pays the rate for that child to be educated.
Okay, the children that are placed in Waterford that are in a safe home, they're considered part of Waterford, correct? Depends.
Then they're considered a no-nexus student, and Waterford would be responsible if they're living in a shelter or a safe home.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just one last thing.
Go ahead, Dave.
In the final analysis, the curriculum would be equivalent to the rest of the system?
Yeah, we're a fully approved licensed school, so that we submit our curriculum to the State Department of Education. At times, we will alter our curriculum to meet kids' graduation requirements because not all school districts have the same requirements. So we have a number of cases where we would have 1 or 2 kids tutored or specialed in a certain area in order to meet their needs. But for the most part, we have a K-12 curriculum across all the major academic areas. Our teachers are all certified special ed teachers.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it.
Okay, moving right along on consent agenda. Okay, in the consent agenda we have the minutes from the October 22nd meeting, special meeting, and also the monthly financial expenditure report for October 2012. And also the food service financial report for October is not yet available and will be included as part of the consent agenda next month. And unless there are any other questions or corrections needed, we need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
For a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carried. Okay. Do we have any correspondence?
I have no correspondence at this time.
Okay. Now we're down to the superintendent's report.
I have a couple of things that I wanted to bring you up to speed with. I had the opportunity to talk with Kathleen McCarty this afternoon, and she sends her greetings. She's out of state on some business, and she promises to watch this board meeting on the website. So sit up tall and straight. Just want to highlight some of the student work that's on display around the room. These are work samples from our students over at Quaker Hill. If you get a chance before you leave tonight, I strongly encourage you to read the Leaf People stories. You will definitely get a chuckle. And those are written by first graders. Our second graders did some work with turkey fact families going along with the seasons. There are formulaic poems. There's descriptive language writing, show, don't tell. And as part of the study with Native Americans, you can see on display over there some plain Indian teepees and Iroquois tribe wall space mats. So some nice work on display by some of our younger students in the school system. Also, wanted to mention to you that tomorrow evening there's a Board of Finance meeting. Ron Melnick and I will be joining that meeting. We are on the agenda. What we want to do is share with them a financial status report as to where we are with the current fiscal year, as well as share with them some of the efficiencies and the cost-saving measures that we shared with you at our last meeting. So we'll be doing that tomorrow evening. We've also had some challenges recently with our school calendar. Out of the blue, we had 5 days off from vacation. I listened to some staff today say to me that as the week went along, my global voice message went from, okay, so here's all the details, and can you believe it, we're out again? And that's kind of what I was feeling along the way. But one of the things that I want to share is that the communication and the coordination in this community around any kind of weather-related emergency always has impressed me, whether it be the tropical storm a year ago with Irene and then this particular hurricane. Jay knows sometimes there were multiple meetings daily. We were on with the governor, and I think one day the president interrupted just to let us know about the upcoming nor'easter. And of course, we were all told by the meteorologist that the nor'easter would probably miss us. However, it really didn't. But I will say the communication and the coordination throughout those events. And even though power was being restored in various parts of the community, there were some significant safety issues with down power lines and trees. Our bus depot was without power, didn't have internet access. We moved them in here into the small conference room. And for 3 consecutive days, they worked with the status of the roads and how to reroute every bus so that if we were able to get back in session, we had a game plan as to what was to happen. But unfortunately, I think it was Friday, somewhere around 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, power was finally restored to Great Neck. But that was after 5 consecutive days. So we'll watch the winter weather closely. And if we need to make any adjustment in the calendar, I'll bring that to your attention. But one of the things that we have to be mindful of, that April break is very critical for us in moving into the new high school. So that's really important. So if we can replay last winter, I think we'll be in great shape. But the other piece of good news is when we do move into the new high school, we will have air conditioning at all of our school sites, which is a real plus. So if we deal with any hot weather in June, we have a conducive environment for teaching and learning. And lastly, what I wanted to share with you is that we had some very successful professional development, and I'd like to turn this piece over to Craig, who has some introductions of some staff who are here tonight to share some of the power of that professional development on November 6th.
Thank you. So a year ago was a question from the board to really get some more information from the regional PD aspect. And so I've invited the 3 people that sort of did the whole regional area, and I'm very pleased to see that we have other people who have held workshops too. So just to give you a little background, call it Season 2 because this is our 2nd year, and we hope this is a long-running initiative. Basically, the 2nd year in a row, 16 communities throughout New London County participate and provide specific professional development in 16 different departments. And region-wide, we had over 900 educators receiving this professional development. You can see the areas. The only one that we didn't send teachers to was preschool because it's really learns teachers, but they were represented. So 72 teachers participated in 14 out of 15 regional PD opportunities. 8 teachers were facilitators, and you see many of them here tonight. And Waterford hosted 3 of the entire region's PD. And so with that, I'd like to introduce the first of 4, 3 main, who would be, first one's Amanda Klein, representing the World Language Department. So, Amanda, can you come up?
Okay. So my presentation, oops, oh dear. Okay, sorry. So basically, I just wanted to start with where the regional PD came from, and I'm sure most of you know, but in 2011, 2012, I know from my perspective, Janice Birdsall and I, who was at that time the curriculum leader at Clark Lane, and myself as department head of high school, we got a call from Craig and said, hey, listen, come to this meeting at Learn, and we came to the meeting, and then realized that we were going to be facilitators for regional PD. Which was a great idea. We were totally on board with it, and Janice and I actually joined 2 other facilitators. And the idea behind it was to just bring districts together and teachers together of these non-core areas and offer PD that was more meaningful for us. In October of 2011, the World Language teachers had our first regional PD. We met at Fitch High School in Groton. We were actually provided with an agenda, so it was pretty prescribed for us what we were supposed to do on that first PD day. There were 4 facilitators, Janice and myself, and then 2 from Groton. And we led 4 different groups because there was such a large group of World Language teachers. We broke it down into 4 different groups, kind of separated people by district, and led the PD. Based on the feedback that we got from that original professional development day, we planned for November PD of last year. So in November of 2011, we were able to create our own agenda, which we did. We offered 3 one-hour workshop sessions during the day. 2 of the topics that were presented were actually presented by Waterford teachers. And we offered sessions on TPRS, assessing oral proficiency, rubric design, and the one on rubric design was actually presented by Dorothy Rabiel, who was the language consultant who came in to work with us on our new curriculum. So she joined us as well on that day. Writing strategies, and then teaching strategies for the interpretive mode. There was also an activity sharing portion at the end of the day so people could collaborate together and work together and talk about lessons and activities that they used in their classes, things that they found successful. So I'm planning for the 2012-2013 school year. We met in May of 2012. I stayed on as facilitator, and I was joined by 3 other facilitators, all from Groton. We reviewed evaluations and the feedback that we had gotten from our PD the year before. We adjusted the schedule just a little bit, and we started contacting some possible presenters. So that started happening in May for planning for this year. And then last week, we adjusted our schedule so that we offered this time 4 one-hour workshops during the day. There were 10 possible topics that people could choose from. Everyone has this? Okay. So this is the handout that everyone has in front of them. This is the actual schedule. So if you look from like 8:35, it started at like 8:15. We had people come in. They went to like homerooms, and then from there they went to the first workshop session, and they were able to choose one of those 4 topics to go to. And then we just moved throughout the day going to these 4 different workshop sessions. We showed the actual webinar, which specifically discussed world language and its relation to the Common Core. This year being that this was, like Craig said, session 2, we were a lot more organized. It was almost set up like really like a professional, like you go and have professional PD somewhere. Everyone got a folder, everyone had their schedule. We did sign up ahead of time on email, so everyone kind of knew where they were going. And the topics were, there was much more variety in the topics. And again, just to point out, 6 of the presenters were from Waterford. So it was not only myself as a facilitator, but I had my whole team of teachers with me as presenters for different topics. Based on, again, the feedback that we got just after last week's session, we've already started planning for March. We have PD on March 28th, 2013. We're going to offer, hopefully, workshop sessions in these areas. These are some of the things that people said that they wanted. We have Dr. Foster did a presentation during our PD, which was on TPS, and so TPR, sorry, and a lot more people want to do that, so he's going to do a more advanced session. We've invited Dorothy to come back, who is the language consultant again. She's going to do one on teaching culture with music and film. We're going to get some more advanced Promethean board training, and which will be quite valuable for the people at the high school, especially moving into the new building right before our move, getting this training. Schema activities, differentiation, collaborative speaking activities, and Leah Grenier-Kennedy is going to come back and do world language and the Common Core Part 2. So the paper that you have in front of you, if you just take a quick look, the professional development workshop session descriptions are all listed there for you. And again, the presenters, there are a couple of people here from my department who presented. Dr. Foster's one, he did TPR. Elizabeth Tanyo and Amanda Marquez, both Spanish teachers at the high school, they presented on internet resources to be used in a world language classroom. Amanda Ewalt, who's not here tonight, but she presented on using PowerPoint to teach world language to use in lessons. And Jan Fraser, who just joined us back this year teaching Latin, she did a session specifically for Latin teachers who kind of always feel like they're out of the loop. She pulled them in and did one on basic spoken Latin in the classroom. We also had Kelly Barnes join us from the IT department, and she did one on making podcasts and from museum board training. And then, of course, we got help from Kathy, just getting us the materials that we needed, folders and all that kind of stuff. So it was great. But I wouldn't have been able to do it without a great team of teachers from Waterford, who really just carried the ball and held it all together.
Great.
Sounds like you did a great job.
But the only reason I really came down was I knew Amanda was going to do a fine job on this presentation as well, but there's no way she could really comfortably tell you how much better organized our PD day was at Waterford than the first one that happened at Fitch, and the amount of effort that she put into it to make it that organized. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was joining and giving her a hand, because it really was.
It was really difficult being at Fitch, because when we didn't get the tech support we needed, I was like, that's it, next year we're doing it at Waterford. I mean, last year in Fitch, I had to call and say, Craig, get me some tech support. So this year, it was like, we had everything we needed.
What you can see is providing PD for the cores is a huge undertaking, and at your seat you get to see the sort of the big overview of all the PD sessions that we've done, and we couldn't be providing this level, this granular level of opportunities and workshops for every department, 16 other departments, if it wasn't for this regional concept and by spreading the wealth to having the facilitators. So this, Amanda and our World Language Department represented the region well in World Language. And I'd like to call up now two other people that Amanda basically said I've commandeered by inviting them to meetings and then asking them
It was an invitation.
to be presenters. And so with that, Marcia Winkler, one of our speech pathologists.
Thank you, Amanda.
Okay, I think I need to go back. And I don't know how to do that. This doesn't look anything like what I'm used to. Okay. All right. I was asked last year to be one of the facilitators for the Speech and Language Department. And so my first meeting, I sort of volunteered. My first meeting took place in Madison in August, the day before Hurricane Irene. And that meeting was cut quite short because all of Madison was shutting down. But I did get a little bit of information at that meeting. The goal of the Regional Professional Development to provide meaningful information to the non-core and related services teachers, and to develop, as I was explained that day, to develop PLC teams, professional learning communities. And what struck me the most on that day was that I was sitting next to somebody from another district, and she said, "What are those?" And so I would like to thank Waterford, because we had been doing that for several years before we started with the regional PD days. And the speech department had many opportunities to meet as a group for pertinent information. Our group only has two facilitators, myself and Mary McGarvey, who is from Madison. The next meeting, which I was extremely nervous about, because I had never done something like this before, really focused on team building, collaboration, learning techniques to make more effective and productive meetings. And we were sort of given a script for the beginning of the meeting. In the afternoon, the speech and language pathologists shared materials and strategies that they use with their students, which was very successful because as a group we don't get a chance to see our neighbors from other towns. And we also did discuss topics for our next meeting. The next meeting, which we discussed, was something that is of major interest to speech and language pathologists and people in special education, would be entrance and exit criteria. And the entrance criteria for the state and for special education is fairly uniform as far as what the standard deviation has to be and how they qualify for services. However, although we have a very small radius in miles of all of these districts, it was amazing how different the exit criteria was. People had totally different ideas on what exit criteria was, and it caused quite a lot of questions about it. Some people felt that it only could be every 3 years when you have to formally test a child. Some people thought it was looking at how they did a curriculum assessment. There were many different ideas about that. We never really came to a conclusion, but we had a lot of questions. And the afternoon focused on SRBI, which was really new for all of us at that point, and the role that the speech and language pathologists play in this process, which was also totally different in each different district. Some speech pathologists provided services to the children, some speech pathologists were just consultants, and it was, I think, a little frustrating for all of us to see how different we all were. Then we looked over, Mary McGargay, the woman who was from Madison, there was obviously when we had the evaluation, how we did. Now, we didn't really want to look at this, but I just put down some of the comments, which was actually, this was better than I thought it would be, which I thought was kind of funny. The day exceeded my expectations. I left with more questions than I had before, which was the second day, which we all left with more questions than we had before we got there, and that this was a great opportunity for group discussion. At the spring planning meeting, we met in May at Learn to plan for our upcoming year, and to address the topics for the next year and plan an agenda. I was the only person there who did not have a partner because my partner was somewhere. I'm not quite sure. Her daughter had a special event. So I was planning the agenda all by myself. Luckily, Mary and I had spoken many times and had sent out information to other speech pathologists, so I did have an idea of what was going on. November 6th, which was our last session, we really focused on the morning session, which was the Common Core and its relevance or impact to speech and language pathologists. This was right after Sandy, and Madison was really hit. And Mary and I had no way of getting in touch with each other because she had no power, no cell phone, no internet, nothing. And we had planned to meet prior, the week of Sandy, before the conference, before the PD day. So I frantically spent many, many hours looking for information about the Common Core and its relationship to speech and language pathologists, and discovered there is a lot of information out there if you really want to find it, a lot of valuable information, which I made copies of. Mary also had an opportunity. She did it a little before me, and during that time on the weekends when she got power back, also to look for materials. So the day of the conference, which we had at 7 o'clock in the morning, which was the only time we could meet, we had an entire table filled with just reams of information and 20 websites for people to look at about the Common Core. Part of our discussion in the meeting the year before and this one was the need for uniformity amongst the districts, and uniformity, especially with the goals and objectives that are coming up for the Common Core standards. And in the research that we did find many, many examples of how our special education speech and language goals can be lined up with the Common Core, so we're all working on helping the children access the curriculum, which is our major goal. And then in the afternoon, we also, again, shared some therapy materials that we use from preschool to high school students. And that, because we don't see each other a lot, is just an incredibly valuable part of the session. It's just really, we just went by school districts or tables, and it's just our fellow speech and language pathologists sharing what they do, sharing what they feel works with their class, with their students, what is successful, and sometimes what's not successful for their students. And we planned, at the end of the day, we did plan for our upcoming spring meeting, and we discussed the need for uniformity among the districts, focusing, as I said before, aligning our goals and objectives with the Common Core. And then something that we did in Waterford, which the other towns were interested in, was developing a bank of goals. So we all, especially if one student is moving into the district, we are all talking the same language. And I wanted to thank all the speech and language pathologists who took the time to gather and present the materials during our programs. And it has been a rewarding experience, but one thing we have not, Mary and I have not had luck in, is getting other people to volunteer. So, and as we've morphed into this, Mary and I have noticed we have become more presenters than facilitators. So we are hoping that we can get some other people to volunteer and help us out.
But you can see, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can see what Marcia's saying, the opportunity to see what other districts are doing on, say, exit criteria for special ed. The opportunity to share practices is just a powerful one, and for that, it's a very worthwhile. Our next presenter is Isabella Podesla, one of our school psychologists, who hosted the day here.
Scoot right through here. Well, my slide says the same thing everybody else's slide says, so I'm going to skip through some of them quickly. What I really want to start off saying is when we were presented with facilitating these groups, you know, you get that nervous feeling about, oh, I have to facilitate. But what was more overwhelming was how excited we were as a group that, oh, we're going to get to focus on professional development specifically geared towards us as school psychologists. So I'm going to see if I can. So that first meeting was that first meeting where we were kind of given the agenda, and we really were working on getting to know each other as a group and working with each other and efficiently working with each other. Because as psychologists, we like to talk a lot. So it was really kind of going through some of those strategies to help us be efficient in our time together, but more specifically to identify those topics for future professional development, which I think so those were our goals for that first meeting. I think we accomplished those goals in that when we met that first time in the fall, we were able to look and figure out among us what resources did we have, and then what other types of resources might we want to look towards. So we're really trying to identify professional development within our group as well as professional development we might seek elsewhere, because we really had a lot of expertise among us. And as I said before, we don't really get a chance to get together very much. So we were able to kind of look at some of that as well as look at some technology that would allow us to collaborate from different locations. So we talked about Google Docs a little bit and how people can upload things that we can then share when we're not just sitting together as a group. So that was very beneficial for us. I think that we accomplished those goals that first day, but we were still kind of molding together as a group. What we were able to do in the second group, and excuse my typo, was kind of look at that feedback that first time and then look at what we kind of needed as a group. And as a group, we really looked at the SRBI process, specifically in meeting behavioral and emotional needs. We've kind of really gone through that process as a district, looking at learning needs, but we were like being able to discuss with each other the next step, which was looking at the behavioral and emotional needs of students. So it was very interesting because we don't get together to see where people stood as far as that. some people are still in the infancy of looking at that, and some people are far more established into looking at. So being able to look at what consisted of Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 interventions. Making sure that even in behavioral and emotional concerns, we were trying to base decisions with data and looking at the type of data people were using to help them make the decisions and monitor progress along those goals. Again, it was similar to speech and language, looking at some of the entrance and exit criteria and then sharing research-based counseling materials and techniques. And what was nice is we kind of looked at all that feedback from that first meeting. We were able to very specifically guide us as a group towards that second meeting. So we were still kind of all over the place of what people wanted, but within the context of SRBI and the tiers, we were able to kind of refine our facilitation of discussion, and we gained so much information from each other in that group, and just being able to hear what other districts are doing, it helped us understand that, oh, okay, we're all similar in what we're doing, we're very different in how can we interpret things and how we moved on. From that, we moved on towards planning for this year, and again, I think what was helpful was each time we meet, we get a little better at defining our needs as a group and deciding what we need moving forward, which as school psychologists isn't something we've necessarily been able to do before. It's more of kind of fitting into something else that might be going on, which does apply to us, but not as specifically as the needs we were defining for ourselves. So again, we tried to look at what type of professional development opportunities we have within our group and what type of resources might be available to us. What was very helpful for us as far as tapping resources available to us, in being 60 to 80 in the group, depending on how the group kind of morphed, people were willing to talk to us. When you're saying, okay, there are 5 of us, could you come, it just doesn't meet the needs of a presenter to say, I want to come talk to 5 people. But us being a group of 60 plus, they were able to say, okay, I can reach a lot of districts and a lot of people all at once, and this is an efficient use of my time, which again was wonderful for us to be able to come together and be able to do that. So with a formal request, the Connecticut State Department of Education sent someone down to speak to us specifically about the things that we need to deal with. There are changes in regulations, there are changes in laws, there are different ways that things are developing within the practice of school psychology that we got to hear firsthand from the State Department as a group and then be able to ask questions. And what was nice for the State Department was something they shared with us is they were able to take our initial feedback of the questions that we have in interpreting some of the things they were talking about that will help guide their future professional development in that area. So we were kind of their guinea pigs in this sense, but now professional development in the areas they spoke to us about is going to be more refined moving on because they know the questions that we have because they were able to speak to so many of us all at once. So that was nice for us to be able to tap that resource of somebody presenting to us some very pertinent information. And again, we looked at the resources among us, which was we were able to share research-based counseling techniques with one another. We were able to hear and see some of those materials that people brought to us and presented to us as kind of in a table-by-table format. And sharing some of the trends that are going on among our school districts and how different school districts are approaching those. There's a big push to incorporate literacy in much of what we're doing, and it was nice to see how different school districts were incorporating literacy into the counseling format, using different rubrics and different types of progress monitoring to take those materials and then use them further and kind of take them to another level. Moving forward, again, we're facilitators and we're looking to facilitate a group and help meet their needs, but the more people, the more brains, sometimes it helps refresh things, so we're looking for additional facilitators. I facilitated last year and then stayed on until this year. Last year I worked with 2 people from Ledger who've since moved on to different things and are no longer facilitating school psychology, but someone from Groton hopped on this year and she was wonderful to co-facilitate with and had some really great ideas, so it was nice to have her there. And our feedback from this last meeting, they were very interested to hear that Waterford was a pilot district as far as the new teacher evaluation system and its impact then, again, specifically for school psychologists in other areas, so they were curious about talking about it, hearing more about that in professional development, and how we kind of fit into these, again, these trends that are going on in education. We always are kind of the outlier, but how do we best meet the needs of our students and fit into those areas as well? And something that comes up again and again in our needs assessments at the end of every meeting is just sharing with each other the materials that we use, the techniques that we use to get together and really help develop our techniques as counselors and as school psychologists by listening to the work of others. So that's kind of how things look moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can see by the groups marshaling this many people, we do get resources from the State Department of Ed. So that's a great benefit as well. You'll notice in this handout where when it comes to page the last page, where tech education was in various places. Was up in Colchester and in Montville as well as Waterford. And Dave Garbeck was one of our presenters from Waterford. So if you could just give us some highlights.
In Waterford, we came together with the communication teachers, the video production area. We had 11 teachers from 6 different districts there. I think we were going to have more, but with the storm, I think a few of the schools held sessions and canceled their PD days, which hurt us a little bit. But to echo what some of the other people said, it was nice because this is the second year we're getting together with the people from other towns, and finally we've kind of broken through, and it's more than just hi, how are you? We wanted to sit down and really see what was going on. And when I was asked to be a facilitator, at first I was like, well, what am I going to do? But then I said, you know, I come away from PD all the time thinking, why didn't we discuss this? Why didn't we talk about something relevant? And I was pleased to see that the Connecticut State Department of Education just came out with the Tech Ed standards this March. And so I gathered up all the information for the communication area, printed it all out so we can look at it, discuss it, see how it worked in our curriculums, and I think everybody was quite surprised how closely we were aligned to each other. I keep hearing in Tech Ed how other schools are doing different things. We found that we're doing more things alike than different. You know, other schools that teach communication, teach video production, we're doing the same thing. We talked about the curriculum, we talked about equipment that we have, equipment that we don't have. We're very fortunate here in Waterford that we are supported quite well in our video production area, and that I think some of the schools were a little envious of what we had and where we're headed with the new school. And it was really nice to see that when they looked at our stuff, you could see a little envy in their faces. We talked about the software that's used in video production, what kind of software we use, what other schools are using. That's where we run into a lot of different avenues. That different towns were using different equipment, but they're all using different software. And I know what we use here in Waterford is great, and it works great for us. But everybody finds their own niche. And but the basic premise is the same in video production and the editing portion of it. Textbooks, we talked about textbooks, and when we got to there, they were very interested in the evaluation system that we're piloting this year, and how we're getting the writing into the curriculum in Tech Ed, and the other Tech Ed teachers were there as well, and we all discussed how we use the writing in our program and how it's helped out with the core subjects. In the afternoon, we worked on some curriculum sharing, some ideas, throwing out ideas that we use in our school that they use, and we're hoping that in the future we can come up with a region-wide video contest for the kids to put together. This is something they can work on in their own school. come together, have a showing. It's an idea that I've been throwing out to them every year, and I think it's starting to sink in because of the teachers are starting to buy into the fact that maybe we can have a little contest, put together a criteria for a video, have a certain amount of time when to start it, when to end it, and then let all the kids come together and see that, you know, they're not alone at their school. There are other kids doing the same things at other schools. When we did wrap up the day, we took a tour of the Waterford High School facility, all the other areas, and at first I wasn't sure if that was something we'd want to do, but most of the tech ed teachers at all the schools teach in more than one area. I do video production. I'm also in the woodshop part of the day, and all the teachers seem to have more than one course they taught, because they were really interested in seeing what we had, and they were quite interested in hopefully coming back at some point and seeing our new school when we do get up and running, to see what we take forward into the new school. And probably as part of the wrap up, we've been to Montville, now we've been to Waterford. We're thinking maybe we can move to another school and see what the other schools are also offering, now that we as teachers are getting to work a little bit more together. So.
Thank you. So, if you have any questions for any of the members, happy to answer. Otherwise, I appreciate the support from us tonight. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
This has been a major undertaking throughout the region, and as you can see, if it's not for the staff, it doesn't happen. So thank you very much for your contribution.
Yes. It's very impressive, all the hard work you did. Thank you so much. Kathleen's going to be disappointed she missed the world language part of this.
But it's on tape.
That's right, that's right.
It's on tape.
Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Michael Spanos, who is the high school senior president, to join us here at the table. And one of the things that we had talked about during our goal setting was to really explore the opportunity for students at the high school level to join us at board meetings and share perspectives as to how things are going at the high school level. So it's going to be part of our committee reports this evening. So, Michael, if you'd like to start.
Sure. So, I'm a senior, like you said, my name's Mike Spanos at Waterford High School. The year started off pretty hectically, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I know that's the word, but there was a lot of talk at the beginning of the year of moving to the new school. There was a lot of speculation that it was going to be this new renovated building, and that's kind of put in the back of our minds. We're looking forward to that not next year, but after April break, right, as the year moves on. The chaos kind of started with the infamous drug raid that Waterford High School had with the dogs coming in. That the kids so kindly dubbed drug raid. There was a lot of drama surrounding that. There was a big topic at the lunch table. A lot of kids talking about it. There was a lot of tension. Who was going to get in trouble and what was going to happen to them. Unfortunately, there were no culprits this year. No big culprits, which is very nice for Waterford. Another chaos factor, I guess, would be Hurricane Sandy, which was a big devastation to this area. There was a lot of destruction, but along with the destruction, it brought a nice Halloween break for us. Truthfully, it was very nice for the kids, very nice for me. I know I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure a lot of the kids at the high school enjoyed the break. It was, unfortunately, though, bad timing as grades were closing. The quarter was ending that same week, and it really crunched our time and pushed a lot of our work forward, and eventually we just had to cram and get everything in we could before the grades closed. And for seniors, I know that grade one, quarter one is the most important quarter, as teachers will always study before college. And on top of the quarter closing and the grades closing, college applications were happening, and seniors were cramming even more so with Hurricane Sandy and power outages, and many colleges back pushing the deadlines back. They were cramming to get all their work done, their best work done, and the college applications. So it was very stressful, especially for seniors, definitely for seniors. But overall, all in all, it's settled down, it's very calm now, and we're just looking forward to getting back, grudgingly looking forward to getting back to routine. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Do the students feel that they have enough information about the new high school and what's going to, when you...
I don't know if we're going to get into we got to know about it other than it's big and it's new.
You like the new football, the new multi-use field? Yeah.
Do you have a major field of concentration or major interest?
Just in general?
Yeah.
I'm interested in pre-law mostly, but I know that's not big in college. It's not really anything for it. That's what I'm interested in.
That's all it has to be.
Yeah.
He has a great role model, his mom.
Well, thank you, Michael,
Thank you,
for
Michael.
coming out tonight. We appreciate it. And it's okay. I know you have assignments to do. Thanks.
Okay. Now on to committee and other reports. Does anybody have any committee reports? No. No, they postponed or held.
The governing board meeting until December.
Okay. We don't have a youth service bureau meeting until tomorrow. Our school building committee meeting is next week. But did you want to explain, tell them a little bit about the furniture that we decided, the school building committee decided on?
The school building committee has approved both the furniture and equipment as well as our technology needs. And at our last meeting, there was a presentation with the overview around technology. Don and I had the opportunity, along with Jay, on Friday to meet with Emily Zarnicki from JCJ Architects with the bid process. As you know, most of the furniture we were able to go off of state and national bids, and the other items we needed to go out for a competitive bid. That's been finished, and we're now in the process of awarding those bids, and we can get moving on the purchasing. So as of this date, we're right on schedule with the ordering at this point. But we're very excited about the tools that we're going to be able to provide the students and the teachers.
Okay. And just a note, just remind everybody that if you would like to help out the Youth Service Bureau and adopt a family over the holidays or donate some food for Thanksgiving, just give the Youth Service Bureau a call. Okay, next item. On the new business, review and possible action regarding our regional school calendar for the 2013-2014 school year.
So this is the regional calendar that's been proposed over at LEARN for all of the participating districts to approve. And one of the things that you could see tonight is really the value of having some commonality into the calendar in order to bring professionals from across the districts. And Craig and I are happy to answer any questions that you have.
Does anybody have any questions? Did you want us to vote on this tonight?
We did.
Okay.
So we need a motion.
Can I have a motion to adopt the 2013-2014 school calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any more discussion? Not that we have much. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay. Now we're on to item B, first reading of policies. Craig, did you want to?
Sure. We did have a meeting of the policy subcommittee, and we bring forward for a first reading two policies. The first one is on administering medications. Both of these policies, the necessity to change was really about some state statute requirements. They've been vetted through our medical advisor. They've been vetted through legal counsel, and they bring us up to the current state statute requirements. There's not a sense of urgency on these because really these are what's being operationalized with our school nurses right now, but we do have to get the policies in order. So I'll be happy to answer any question on administering medications and then on students with healthcare needs.
Does anybody have any questions? John?
A little confused. got the rules of the road here.
The yellow that's completely lined.
Yep. So,
you calibrated?
Sure.
Which is
the blue is the policy, and the policy is pretty robust, and the yellow is the regulations, and so the regulation piece that's still in existence is really around sort of the forms and releases, but a lot of the language from when we revised this policy back in '03 to now has been sort of codified better in policy. So the policy is really what can only be changed by the board. The regulations are administrative regulations, and if we need to make any modifications, we'll notify the board, but we have some liberty there, and that's why you see some of the change.
I have one question about the special health care needs comment or suggestion. I have you, second paragraph, third line. I'm not sure what you meant by minimize the risk of accidental exposure to life-threatening. How you should disease to prevent or preclude.
So,
I don't know why our goal would be to minimize something that's important as that.
We talked about various allergies, like peanut allergies. It can be, there's a continuum from ingestion would be a cause of an allergy to, if it's on the skin, to where if it's airborne and it's just around the area. And so by knowing who has the allergic sort of severity, we do try to minimize at all costs exposure. But we holding back on the word of totally prevent, because sometimes that's hard to ensure when, say, in this case, kids can bring things on the bus or into school. We do have severe health care plans, and so some of them might require that bus seats get wiped down before the passenger comes on board, that they sit up front, that there's a peanut-free table at the lunch cafeteria, there's a peanut-free classroom, and that's why we've chosen that language, but
just to take we
take safety seriously, so I understand the concern here, and so let us look at that language, that word, to see if we can strike a better balance.
I think it should be our objective to put that.
Sure. In that
99% is good, except 1%.
I think, John, the other piece that we need to do is get legal advice on that. I think there is a reason for the choice of the language that comes from the legal side.
And so this is the first reading, so no action tonight, and for the next reading, we'll have a clarification on that.
That's a good point.
You would actually have to take into account that allergies can develop. If someone becomes sensitized, slightly less sensitive to any kind of allergy. So
very true.
Personally, I don't have too much of a problem with it. It's like, go ahead and get legal advice.
Any other questions? Okay, well, since this is the first reading, we don't have to vote on either policy tonight. Moving right along. On item C, review and possible action regarding our 2013 regular meeting schedule. That was in our packet.
Right. And it's time for us to identify for 2013 our meeting dates, and we need to file these dates with the town clerk. Otherwise, legally, we can't host a regularly scheduled meeting as such. You'll note in the footnotes at the bottom, they generally follow the fourth Thursday of the month. There are some exceptions. When you're looking at the Wednesday meeting in March, it's due to the fact that the Board of Finance has scheduled the public hearing on the budget, and that's something that both Kathleen and I need to be in attendance, and other board members are welcome to do that. Also, when you look at the November and December, this is around the holiday times that traditionally the board has looked at what makes the most sense for scheduling of the meeting. And then if you bounce back up to the April, I had a conflict that I couldn't be in attendance on the fourth Thursday, so in consultation suggested the third Thursday that month in April.
John?
Have you mapped out dates for budget discussion?
Yes, and those would be, those we don't have to post like this as a regularly scheduled meeting. So I think when we looked at the budget calendar, we identified those in January, which leads us to our January 24th meeting. So they're all prior to January 24th. So this requires action so that we can file with the town clerk.
Motion to approve the calendar as presented.
Is there a second? Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Okay. Ann?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Thank you.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much for coming, everybody.
Yeah.